The story opens with pure panic and urgency. Our protagonist, Sarah, and her controlling father, Don, are rushing a teenage girl named Marie to the hospital because she is having serious trouble breathing. Sarah sits in the back seat, holding Marie tightly, her face filled with fear as Marie's condition worsens. They burst into the hospital emergency room, where doctors and nurses immediately take over, working at lightning speed. The girl's condition is extremely critical. The heart monitor starts beeping wildly, then suddenly flatlines, sending the entire medical team into a desperate fight to revive her. The story then flashes back 20 years earlier to a seemingly normal and idyllic family dinner. Sarah and her older sister Amy are sitting at the table with their parents, Don and Irene. The peaceful mood quickly changes when Sarah's father shows his true oppressive side. He refuses to let Sarah go to a party and makes it very clear that he rules the family with an iron fist. That same night, Sarah decides to rebel and sneaks out of the house to meet her boyfriend Chris. Her parents later discover her room empty, and Don coldly refers to her as nothing but a problem that needs to be handled. At the bonfire party, Sarah finally has some fun. She dances freely with Chris under the open sky. Later, Chris sings her a beautiful song that he wrote especially for her. They share their feelings, express their love for each other, and share a tender kiss. Sarah feels truly alive and hopeful about her future. But when she returns home early in the morning, Don has been waiting for her all night with growing anger. They get into a heated fight, and Sarah boldly declares that the moment she turns 18, she will leave the family for good and never look back. Sarah talks excitedly to her mother Irene and sister Amy about her big plans to travel all around the country while working different jobs to support herself and live freely. Unfortunately, her father Don overhears the entire conversation. Later, he goes down to the basement and reveals a hidden secret room behind a bookshelf that he has been preparing. 3 months pass, and Sarah graduates from high school. In a quiet conversation with her mom, it is revealed that Don has been spending more and more time in the basement, calling it his private man cave. One day when Irene leaves the house, Don tricks Sarah into helping him carry a heavy box down to the basement. Once they are there, he leads her into the secret room and calmly tells her it is an old bomb shelter built by the previous owner of the house. Before she can react, he locks the heavy door and traps her inside. Sarah immediately screams in panic and calls for help, banging on the walls, but unfortunately nobody can hear her because the shelter is completely soundproof. Upstairs, her mother Irene grows extremely worried about Sarah's sudden disappearance and calls the police. On the 4th day of her captivity, Don finally visits Sarah in the basement. He coldly explains the harsh logistics of her new life. From now on, she will have to earn everything she gets, even the clean, ventilated air she breathes. Before he leaves, Don takes advantage of Sarah in the most horrifying way. Meanwhile, a police officer visits the family upstairs and says that Sarah has most likely left on the long trip across the country that she had always planned. Irene refuses to believe it, insisting that Sarah would never leave home without saying goodbye, especially right before her 18th birthday. Alone and terrified in the dark basement, Sarah often reminisces about the romantic night she spent with Chris to keep her spirits from completely breaking. As the days turn into weeks, Chris comes to the house looking for Sarah. Don lies straight to his face and tells him that after graduation, Sarah ran away with her childhood neighbor Steve. On the 21st day of her captivity, Sarah turns 18. Don brings her a small cake and a red nightgown as a so-called gift. When she asks for a clock so she can track time, he tells her she must do something for him first if she wants anything in return. When she disobeys, he beats her brutally. Almost a year into her captivity, Sarah discovers she is pregnant. Her water breaks while she is completely alone, and she gives birth to a baby girl whom she names Marie. The birth is painful and terrifying with no help. 4 years later, Sarah becomes pregnant again. Don continues living his secret double life. One normal life upstairs with his wife Irene and daughter Amy, and another dark life in the basement with Sarah and their growing daughter Marie. Irene remains deeply worried about Sarah's whereabouts and wants to hire a private investigator, but Don firmly refuses and shuts the idea down. As a reward for behaving well, Don brings a small television into the basement for Sarah and Marie to watch. Later, Sarah gives birth to a second child, a baby boy she names Michael. One emotional night, Sarah turns her own terrifying real-life story into a gentle bedtime story filled with princesses and brave knights, telling it to her children to help them cope. Chris visits the house again, still searching for answers about Sarah. This time her sister Amy tells him the truth and realizes that Don had lied to him earlier. They talk about how horrible and controlling Don has always been towards Sarah. Amy even fears that Don might have done something terrible to her, citing his bad temper and violent personality. To make the endless time pass in the basement, Sarah creates imaginary adventures and stories for her children, helping them forget there is a whole world outside. Meanwhile, upstairs, Don is confronted about his lies by both Amy and Irene. A horrible fight breaks out. Furious, Irene yells that she will do everything in her power to find her missing daughter. During the argument, Don accidentally drops his keys. Amy quickly takes them and heads toward the basement to search for clues. Don notices, catches her, grabs the keys back, and gets into another angry fight with her. Amy is mad, scared, and openly blames him for causing Sarah's disappearance. As more time passes, Sarah gives birth to another baby boy, whom she names Thomas. Being calm and persuasive, Sarah convinces Don to take the third baby upstairs. She explains that there is simply no more room in the basement and she cannot take care of another child properly down there. Don agrees and leaves the baby on the porch of the house for Irene to find. Inside the basket is a heartfelt note that appears to be written by Sarah, saying this is her baby, and she wants Irene to raise him because she and her boyfriend do not have the means to care for him. There is also a hidden second note from Sarah, desperately pleading for help. Sadly, Don discovers the secret note first and assaults Sarah violently again as punishment. The years continue to drag on in the suffocating basement. The children develop extraordinarily rich imaginations and even start expanding their mother's bedtime stories with their own creative ideas. By now, Sarah has been trapped for 14 long years. Marie has grown into a beautiful young girl. One night, she tries on makeup for the first time, but when Don shows unwanted interest in her beauty, Sarah begs him desperately to leave her daughter alone. She refuses to let Marie suffer the same horror. In anger, Don shuts off the power that controls the clean air supply. While gasping for breath, Marie expresses her sadness about never meeting anyone or having any friends. During the conversation, it becomes clear that Marie has no idea Don is both her grandfather and her father. Upstairs, young Thomas finds his grandmother Irene crying in Sarah's old bedroom. Irene misses her daughter terribly and talks to Thomas about how wonderful and magnificent Sarah was. At the same time, down in the basement, raindrops begin falling from the ceiling. Sarah climbs up and discovers a damp spot in the roof. Using a spoon, she desperately digs her way toward the surface and flashes a distressed signal through the small hole. A neighbor notices the strange light and tells Don about it. Instead of checking, Don beats Sarah brutally. At that time, she is pregnant again, and the beating causes her to lose the baby. Sarah suffers a stillbirth, and Don buries the tiny body in the yard. Later, Don goes down to the basement complaining about his problems while strangely praising Thomas, who has grown into a strong young athlete despite the cramped conditions. When Marie and Michael ask when they will finally be allowed to see the outside world, Don cruelly blames Sarah and her bad behavior, saying she is the reason they are all trapped down there. Pressured by her children's endless innocent questions about their strange life, Sarah explodes in a fit of rage. She shouts and demolishes all their makeshift furniture in frustration. Exhausted, she collapses to the ground, remembering her happiest moments with Chris. Her children gently put a blanket over her and clean up the mess. They apologize, and an emotional Sarah finally decides they are old enough to hear the true story behind their life in captivity. Until now, they only knew that Don lives upstairs with their Aunt Irene to help take care of Thomas. Sick of all the lies, Sarah tells them everything, starting from the fact that her own painful life is the real inspiration for their favorite bedtime story. Gently and carefully, she explains that Don is her father as well as their father. The moment Marie learns the devastating truth, she suffers a severe asthma attack. The children now feel that something is deeply wrong with them, but Sarah reassures them lovingly, saying she loves them more than anything and that Don is the only one to blame. A year later, another tense incident happens between Don and Michael after Don insults Sarah's appearance. Food rations for the basement start getting smaller because Don is having trouble at work. Soon he loses his job and faces foreclosure on the house. In desperation, Don tries to suffocate the entire family in the basement by connecting the car exhaust fumes to the air vent. He is only stopped when Thomas walks into the garage and unknowingly interrupts him, saving their lives. While Don and the upstairs family enjoy a fun barbecue in the yard, Marie is struggling badly to breathe down below. Don initially refuses to take Marie to the hospital, but Sarah begs him desperately and promises not to say a single word about anything if he helps. Don finally agrees, but Michael is left behind in the basement. 20 full years of captivity have now passed, and we return to the very beginning of the film where Marie is being rushed to the hospital. Sarah is extremely worried about her daughter's life and feels overwhelming relief when the doctors finally manage to save her. When the nurse asks for more medical history, she is told that Marie is homeschooled and has only ever been treated with natural remedies. Sarah slowly scans the hospital, quietly looking for any chance to escape. She looks tired and lost after 2 decades of hell. In a clever attempt, Sarah spills water on the medical forms and manages to separate from Don for a few precious seconds. Before Don can reach her, Sarah reaches the nurse and confesses that she needs help. A police officer is called over to talk to Don, and he is quickly arrested. Sarah rushes to tell Marie the wonderful news. They are finally safe and free. The house is soon filled with police officers who discover and free Michael as well. Irene and the rest of the family are completely devastated when they see Michael gasping for air as he is brought out of the basement for the first time. Don watches everything helplessly from the back of the police vehicle. Later, on a beautiful sunny summer day, Marie, Thomas, and Michael play happily in the countryside for the first time in their lives. Sarah, Irene, Bud, and Amy watch over them lovingly from the porch of the house. Suddenly, Marie notices someone coming up the driveway. It is Chris arriving on his motorcycle. He and Sarah go for a quiet walk together. Chris feels deep regret for not trying harder to find her and for believing Don's lies all those years. He gives her a special gift, a pink motorcycle helmet he had bought for her when she turned 18, back when they were dreaming of traveling together. Finally happy and reunited, Sarah and Chris go on their long-awaited motorcycle ride into a brighter future. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss more videos like this. Thanks for watching.